So then you are left to being told, well, that's what it means. Okay, so you just got to do what you got to do, and you're told, and they're going to tell you in favor of them. They're not going to tell you in favor of you.
So you should just quit, right? You should just give up? No. Who's the judge? What? Who's the judge?
The judge is God.
Why is he God?
Because he decides who wins or loses, not my opponent.
And who is your opponent?
He doesn't exist.
And why doesn't he exist?
Because he is a mere dissenting voice to the truth I speak.
That's right. Speak the truth.
The whole purpose of this is that you understand that these rights come from God. Now, after I'm finished talking to you, you're going to have a new concept of Constitution and how it works. You're going to understand that it's what you say it is. If you got an honest right, and I'll give you a perfect example. Now, the First Amendment basically talks about the right of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, right? But isn't the right to work part of right of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? You got a right to work, right? Contract your labor, your skill, and your time of life as you see fit, right? Does that make sense to you? That's a First Amendment right. Another First Amendment right would be the right to travel freely unencumbered. See, no state can require you to have a license to travel freely unencumbered, and we'll go into that and show you how that is taken care of. You must know your rights and timely assert them. That is your burden. If you do not, then a legal term called laches incurs is in full force. Laches is a legal term which is defined as a laches is a species of action wherein a party of reasonable intelligence and integrity, having a right to take an action as is prescribed by law and having failed to timely do so, loses all right to proceed. So what is actually happening out there, folks, is that laches is incurring because most people don't read their Constitution and know what's involved.
Agenda. New analysis of the U.S. prison population finds more black men are incarcerated now than were enslaved in 1850. The figures are stunning. They are sobering, eye-opening numbers. The latest estimates by the Bureau of Justice putting the number of imprisoned African-American men at more than 846,000. While black men account for roughly 6.5% of the U.S. population, they make up 40.2% of the prison population. So why is it that this country is putting away so many African-American men? Do we have a definite reason for it?
Shifted public policy in such a way that it's easier to get incarcerated. The net is wider and it's deeper.
So the new NAACP report ties state spending to investments in education. So nationwide, $88,000 is spent on each incarcerated juvenile a year, while just $9,000 is spent educating each student. So let's also take a look at parenting, because the stats here are pretty eye-opening as well, because 1 in 15 black children have a parent that is in prison compared to 1 in 111 white kids. So are we just watching and witnessing as generations continue to grow up a vicious cycle that's becoming ingrained within the black community itself?
Well, we have to be careful with the way we talk about that. There is a cycle of mass incarceration within poor communities and African-American communities, but we want to be careful not to suggest that mass incarceration is due to some kind of culture of poverty, as if poor people or black people are more inclined to go to prison. The fact is, black people are targeted for prison more. If I went to Harvard University or Princeton University on a Friday night, I can incarcerate a lot of people or arrest a lot of people for, you know, simple possession of drugs, for public drunkenness, for public urination, for disorderly conduct. But we're not looking at Harvard and Princeton, but we go to poor neighborhoods like in New York, where three counties produce 70% of the state's prisoners. Those are poor black and brown people. That's the fundamental issue. At the same time, we do need to consider how mass incarceration takes fathers out of homes. It takes people out of active citizenship. It really deteriorates the community, and that's what we need to think about.
All right, Mark Lamont Hill, great to have you on today, Mark. Really appreciate it. And our
knowledge is power. You know what's in this book, and you know how to exercise your rights in a timely fashion. You have constitutional rights.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
You can do is you can turn around and ask the judge if he's a licensed attorney to practice law, because none of the judges are licensed. Take my word for it. Michigan Constitution says under the Adjudicature Act that they're by law to have a license, that they are required to be licensed by the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan does not license attorneys. The Bar Association licenses them. They give them a P number and a card that says, yeah, you're a member of the Bar Association. But if you call up the Bar Association, they will tell you they don't give nobody a license. The state of Michigan doesn't give them a license. The Bar Association didn't give them a license. So what license could they be talking about? A Mickey Mouse license? Because that's the only one that's left. The state doesn't issue one, the bar doesn't issue one, and the one they got hanging on the wall does not a license from the state of Michigan. And the Constitution of the state of Michigan says all judges will be licensed to practice law before the state. And you ask him, where's the guy's license? He doesn't have one. And, Your Honor, may it please the court, if since you don't have a license, I'm asking you to recuse yourself until we can get a judge that has a license. The judge doesn't have a license. Now, let's suppose the judge could prove he has a license, which he doesn't. Judge, let me ask you a question. Under your retirement fund, isn't it a fact that you get a certain percentage of the rake-off of all of the tickets that come before your bench? Well, yeah. And isn't out of a $40 that comes across your bench, you get $18.75? Well, yeah. So you have a financial interest in this matter, isn't that correct? Well, yeah. Well, isn't that a violation of Judicial Canon number 7? You're not supposed to have any financial interest in any matter that comes before your court. I'm going to ask you to recuse yourself for bias, Your Honor, may it please the court. And every single judge has got it. Now, does everybody understand how many ways you can hammer them just out of the chute without even getting nasty? The judge don't have a license. The judge has got a personal interest in the case for financial reasons. There is no jurisdiction to hear the matter, and I'll tell you a secret. Once you challenge jurisdiction, the burden falls on the plaintiff to prove jurisdiction. See? And he can't do it. It cannot be done. There isn't any. So how do they do it? 'Cause they wants to, and 'cause you don't know any better. That's how they do it.
If you see me walking down the street and I start to cry each time we meet, and walk on by, walk on by, make believe.
Shabazz K. Milton Berle was actually interning for the Black Panthers in early 1970. He hadn't even earned his black beret and leather jacket. One fateful day, he heard a gunshot. And the words,
I, Eli Gorbinski, hate deputy sheriffs. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I hate all police officers and parking enforcers. And that's why I, Eli Gorbinski, shot this here deputy sheriff.
Shabazz never investigated the gunshot or the oddly expositional phrase Eli yelled out. But within minutes, the cops had busted down the door to the Black Panther office supply shed and arrested Shabazz for the murder of Deputy Sheriff Gary Pfeiffer. Several people witnessed the murder. One had 8mm video footage. Another happened to be a stenographer who had it all transcribed, including Eli's confession, which he oddly enough signed and dated. The murder weapon had Eli's prints all over it, which were clearly visible since he had been enjoying a chocolate donut at the time of the shooting. There was also a receipt of sale attached to the gun, and the manufacturer warranty card was filled out, signed, and dated by Eli. During the trial, footage of the incident confirmed the stenographer's note that Gary's last words were actually, "Eli Gorbinski killed me." After only 20 minutes of deliberation, Shabazz K. Milton Berle was sentenced to death.
Man, ain't this a bitch?
562027, that the defendant shall serve a term of 3 years, which is the minimum on count 1 of that. As to count 2 in that case, felonious assault, a felony of the 2nd degree, it is ordered that the defendant shall serve a term of 2 years in prison on that count. As to count 3 of that case, the robbery, which is also a felony of the 2nd degree, the court orders that the defendant shall serve a term of 2 years on that count as well.
Convicted of organizing a robbery that led to the shootings of 2 Cleveland Clinic employees downtown last year will spend the next 61 years to life in prison. Joaquin Hicks was sentenced today in connection with the shooting of Jeremy Pekanek and Jory Abley. Pekanek was killed.
And in court today, 2 spectators were removed from the court after they shouted that he's not guilty. Now, this is a portion of what Joaquin himself had to say today in court.
I've never been to the place that the murder took place in. I never even heard of the bar before, but it seems as if they had already made their minds up. They made it as if I was lying because I had trouble recalling exactly what I did.
So how do they do it? Because they wants to, and because you don't know any better. That's how they do it. Okay? Now, the bottom line is a lot of things are going on out here, and you have to be cognizant of what's going on. And you have to be cognizant of your rights. And you have to be willing to take the necessary and appropriate action. And you can have some fun at it. You get a hold of this Constitution, and you start learning that Constitution, and you quote a chapter and verse, and guess what? You'll notice a unique, different change. One, after a while, they start to listen. Knowledge is power. You know what's in this book, and you know how to exercise your rights in a timely fashion. You have constitutional rights. And if you exercise them, and you utilize good judgment, and be courteous, and just treat people the way you like to be treated, with a little dignity. Most of the time, 99% of the time, I win. I'm just a little Joe from Kokomo. I live on the block. I travel at the common law. I have a right to travel freely and unencumbered pursuant to Shapiro versus Thompson, and that right is so basic it doesn't even need to be mentioned. The state of Michigan arbitrarily and erroneously converted my right into a privilege and issued a license plate and a fee for it. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania says no state may convert a secured liberty into a privilege and issue a license and a fee for it. And if they do, Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, Alabama says I can ignore the license and engage in the right with impunity. That means you can't punish me. Since I have relied on previous decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court and on constitutional defenses, I have a perfect defense for willfulness. I am immune to the prosecution. Therefore, prosecution counsel does not have a cause of action for which relief can be granted. I'd motion for dismissal with prejudice for failure to state a cause of action for which relief can be granted, and I'd kind of like to collect my costs and fees for having to defend this frivolous case. Knowledge is power. You know what's in this book, and you know how to exercise your rights in a timely fashion. You have constitutional rights. You must claim your right if you want to have it. You have to be willing to do that. And if they are going to take your right, then you have to be willing to challenge them, whatever it costs. Now, the bottom line is any law that comes in conflict with that, what do we talk about in Article 6, Paragraph 2? If any law shall come in conflict with this, the supreme law, what happens? It's null and void of law. It bears no power to enforce, no obligation to obey, purports to settle as if it never existed. Unconstitutionality dates from the enactment of such a law, not from any date so branded in open court of law. You must claim your right if you want to have it. You have to be willing to do that. And if they are going to take your right, then you have to be willing to challenge them. Whatever.
What's your name, boy?
5.
What's your name?
I said 5.
I said, what's your name, huh?
I said 5.
What's your name?
And I keep saying 5 like the Fifth Amendment. And this cop is getting pissed. And there ain't much he can do to me. So dig this. He give me a ticket for littering on account of the paper that he ripped up out of my hand. They can't do too much with that many eyes on them, man. They ain't nothing but racist cops.
That's true.
Shit.
Well, well, well. If it isn't the great Huey P. Newton, license and registration. Get out of the car.
California law does not require a driver to leave a vehicle unless he's being placed under arrest.
Get out the fucking car! You got a problem with English, boy? You two. Come on.
What's the problem, officer? Resisting arrest. No, my arm. And the use of force on your part is illegal.
Go. Yeah. Spread up. Let's go for a walk. I said spread up.
Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest?
Move it.
Am I under arrest?
Huey! Oh my God! Son of
Yes, I did. This got the trace on He has internal bleeding.
Okay, what do we got here?
Gunshots, multiple.
Get out of the way! What are you doing? Back off! God damn it! That's the cop killer! You don't kill! You don't kill a cop, boy!
Now you say that Huey Newton opened fire that night without any provocation. What makes you so sure? It was a dark night. There was lots of confusion.
Well, sir, I was there.
That's right, you were. He was there. He saw everything. And he is not on trial. He does not need to lie to save his own life. Your witness.
Thank you. No questions, Your Honor.
Well, you may step down.
But if it please the court, I would like to introduce testimony at this time from a new witness, one who is not on trial for his life, but one who was also there. I call Gene McKinney to the stand.
I object, Your Honor. Who is this man?
This is an eyewitness, Your Honor. The passenger in Huey Newton's car.
Overruled. Mr. Gary, you may examine your witness.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. McKinney, were you a passenger in the car that night, October 28, 1967?
And I keep saying fine, like the Fifth Amendment, you know?
Yes, yes, sir, I was.
Huh? And did you witness the shootout?
Yes, sir, I did.
From what you saw, did Huey Newton start the shooting?
Look, am I under arrest because according to California...
Take that bottle and shove it up your ass, nigger!
No, sir, he did not.
Order. Order! Order!
Well, then, did someone else start the shooting?
I refuse to answer that question on the grounds that it might incriminate me.
Order! Order!
Did you shoot the officers in question?
Again, I will take the Fifth Amendment on that question on the grounds that it might incriminate me.
Order! Order!
This just in. Gene McKinney pleaded the Fifth Amendment and in doing so drew suspicion from Huey P. Newton to himself. If Newton did not initiate the shooting, charges against him could be greatly reduced. However, having been granted immunity in exchange for testifying, McKinney himself cannot be prosecuted.
Now it's important for you to immediately jump to the Ninth Amendment. What does the Ninth Amendment say? Enumeration in this Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Now, basically what that means in simplest of terms, Congress has no authority to add on to the Constitution in such a way that would take away rights previously guaranteed.
Just a little engine trouble. Son of a bitch. They're niggers.
Speak the truth.
Speak the truth.
Take the meanest, most restless nigger. Strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, female niggers, and nigger infants. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a horse facing in opposite direction, set him on fire, and beat both horses until they tear him apart in front of the male, female, and nigger infants. Bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males within an inch of their life. Do not kill them, but put the fear of God in them, for they can be useful for future breeding. Anybody know who Willie Lynch was? Anybody? Raise your hand. No one? He was a vicious slave owner in the West Indies. The slave masters in the colony of Virginia were having trouble controlling their slaves, so they sent for Mr. Lynch to teach them his methods. The word lynching came from his last name. His methods were very simple, but they were diabolical. Keep the slave physically strong, but psychologically weak and dependent on the slave master. Keep the body, take the mind. I and every other professor on this campus are here to help you to find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. Because obviously you have lost it.
All right, Leroy. Who's the one and only master?
I am.
Oh, God damn. Let me go, motherfucker, let me go.